I had a bad vibe about this particular group when I signed up to do the speaking and I ignored it. And I regretted ignoring it because they did put me through the ringer. So there's like a massive emotional component to bringing speaking into your business because it is so emotionally and mentally and physically draining. You really, really have to pay a lot of attention to your intuition, to your emotions, what feels good, what doesn't feel good. Because if you ignore those things, that's usually what ends up costing you.
Welcome to the Coast Podcast. I'm Emily, a virtual assistant agency owner who left Amazon in 2019 to build my dream.
And I'm Whitney, a freelance writer and communications consultant who never felt at home in a cube farm.
We wanted to learn from people who paved their own ways like we did. So we created this podcast to talk to others who were brave enough to pick a different path. Creatives, entrepreneurs, people doing their careers and their lives their way.
Join us as we make new friends, get inspired, and show you beautiful paths less traveled.
Not every road leads to the coast, but the ones that do come with a great view.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Coast. My name is Whitney Popa, and I own a communications consultancy in Edmonds, Washington. I actually just changed my website to be more clear about what I do. I help you with your words, I host workshops, and I provide connections for Pacific Northwest small businesses. And we're excited to be back here in the new year. Like I just said, I wasn't going to do this, but this is our first episode that we're recording in 2024, even though you'll have heard some new episodes. So I don't know, I'm feeling properly decomposed.
And I'm Emily Given. I own a virtual assistant agency in Linwood, Washington. We help business owners focus on the things that take up a lot of time so they can enjoy their life outside of work. And today we are talking to Ellyn Schinke, who is a former scientist turned the #1 burnout and stress coach on Google. She's on a mission to help ambitious achievers build mindsets, habits, and behaviors that burnout-proof their businesses so they can work less and live more. Ellyn, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so pumped to be here. I also love that you were like, I'm decomposed after the holidays.
She says that. That's her thing.
Is that your
Decomposed.
thing? I've never heard you say that before. It made me smile.
My mom has this weird thing. A native English speaker, born and raised in Washington, cannot say so many words and makes up weird words for things, which is probably part of why I was inspired to go into the work that I do. She's a big reader, brilliant person, and yet she has all these weird language struggles that even my in-laws, who are from Romania, but Germans, they speak way better English than we do. Anyway, yeah, I adopted it from her because when she used to work travel a bunch, she would say that she didn't want to go out to eat. She wanted to stay home and decompose. And what she meant was decompress. So we gave her a bunch of shit for that growing up, and then we adopted it. Other words that she says too, like marinate on things, decompose. But the visual of decomposing is just so what it is that you do over the holidays if you do the holidays right.
Mm-hmm.
So I felt ready to come home this time from over the mountains, and I felt decomposed. I've said decompose since I was like in middle school because it just is a better way of thinking. It gives you such a good visual of like what the holidays are for.
I love it. I went too hard, I think, in that direction. I don't have, and I really would like to find it, but I don't really have the, like Jan 1, let's go, like strategy, like resolutions. I'm like, I'm chill, like, but I don't know if that's right. So
I don't feel like there is a right or wrong way.
I know.
I
I'm
used
just like,
to be the like, yeah, I used to be like the kick everything off January 1st. Let's go. Let's get it. But maybe it's because I went to a Seahawks game the day before and I was like so out of commission for the next 12 hours because man, was that exhausting.
It is a lot.
So yeah.
I had a lot of masculine energy a few days ago. I do have to admit that I was like, yes, I'm so ready. I have so many ideas, and I never have an ease in because my client work just doesn't really stop.
Mm-hmm.
I even had a couple things I had to write over the break that I like had to work to not be resenty about. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I also don't like have any rules around things. I don't do resolutions. I do some goal setting early in December, and then I just put that away, and I don't really get all weird and intense about things. But I also have the privilege of like a lot of retainer clients too.
Yeah.
So
I saw
TBD.
a cool thing that was like, instead of resolutions, it was ins and outs. So like, what's
I saw that
yeah,
too. Yeah,
I like
cute.
that. Like,
I'm literally doing a reel on that like today. Or
yay!
that theme. I don't even love the idea of ins and outs, because I feel like that's why I target in my work, I target ambitious achievers, is I feel like we tend to just be like highly judgmental of ourselves. And
Yeah.
I like the ins and outs trend, but what I don't like about it is it kind of, the implication there is like you're not doing anything right. So you're either bringing new things in or getting rid of bad things. And so when I did mine, I added in keeps. So I call it keeps ins and outs.
I
So
like
I want to
it.
celebrate the stuff that I'm actually doing well. Even if there are ins and there are outs, I also want to celebrate the things that I'm already doing and that I want to maintain. So yeah, I really like that trend. I think it's a much better than New Year's resolutions. I don't think I've set a New Year's resolution in like, I don't know, like 5 years.
I like.
I love
Yeah, the
that.
keeps awesome.
Yeah, I did that for holidays. I'm going big on Threads right now, and I just feel like they're my people. Everyone should join Threads and like talk with me there, because it's just all these people, and I don't know if they just have the algorithm just really dialed in. Anyway, I said during the holidays the things as far as traditions go, like things that I think I called them stay or keep, something like that, like old, new, the things I want to add, the things I want to remove. Like basically the point was that as adults, even though the holidays are just weird when you're in this
Facts.
life stage where you're not really like a grandparent or
So
like
weird.
an elder, you're just like a person and trying to still have magic and everything, but you have this added benefit of, oh, I get to decide what my holidays are in certain ways still. Like even when we still don't think that we're able to decide, like I'm just going along with this family tradition, sitting with ourselves and being like, do I have to do that?
Yeah.
And there's so much cool benefit to that, and that applies to our businesses as well. So I love the keep idea of that you're doing.
So I want to go, like, Ellyn, I want to talk about you. I want you to talk about you, but I'm very intrigued by this. Like, Ellyn is a former scientist. I like
Okay,
science.
what I want Ellyn to talk about too is the Google thing.
Yeah, all of it.
Yeah, do the science and then tell us about Google.
Like, what former
heck
scientists?
yeah.
Like, what kind of scientists?
I actually was 10 years ago, I was getting my Ph.D. It's about to be Dr. Ellyn. I'm like a massive, massive science nerd, but as happens when you're in graduate school, I burned out, and I burned out really, really hard. I didn't even really realize it was burnout when I was going through it. But I literally like talk about somebody who I was the social chair of my graduate department. Like I was the person who organized all of the social events for everybody in my department. And I went from being that to just being like a hermit and just like not wanting to hang out with anybody and like super socially isolated, because I was going through so much, physical exhaustion, mental exhaustion, just being overwhelmed and like really, really questioning everything about the career trajectory I'd ended up on, that I just like didn't even want to like talk to anybody. So as of when was it? Fall 2016, I made the decision to drop out of my PhD. Much to my parents' joy, I'm like dropping out of being Dr. Ellyn.
What kind
And
of science, though?
Oh, I was in microbiology and immunology, so like super nerdy science. I basically studied infectious diseases. I particularly studied
No
a
big deal.
bacteria
I'm
that
sorry.
causes.
No, I'm not laughing, but I'm like, good timing. That you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, and actually I was doing the PhD in microbiology, and then because I was kind of grasping at straws to try to find something that I felt fulfilling, I also was doing a master's degree in hospital and molecular epidemiology, which is basically like public health. So yeah, I had a
Dang.
very, very well-timed
Exit.
education and exit. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, also good. Yes, education. Yes. I'm like, good thing.
I hear that maybe there was some perfection-y and like motivation to perform.
And I wouldn't even necessarily say it was perfectionism in terms of what career I pursued. I definitely am like a recovering perfectionist for sure. But I think it was a lot of, and I feel like a lot of people who are like Enneagram 3 high achievers like I am, I was very externally validated, and I basically did
Mhm.
everything that people around me were impressed by.
Oh yeah, I
Like,
hear that.
even just take, like, how both of you react to the fact that I was like, I was getting my Ph.D. in microbiology and immunology. I got, like, a sick, twisted satisfaction out of how people would react to me telling them that. I have a vivid memory of me being at, like, Home Depot in Ann Arbor, Michigan, which is where I went to graduate school, me being at Home Depot telling somebody, "Oh, yeah, this is why I came to Ann Arbor. I'm getting a Ph.D. in this." And the guy literally responded with, "Wow, you're a glutton for punishment." And I got, like, a weird twisted satisfaction out of that, but, like, that was me. That was my entire, from probably middle school until the point where I decided to leave my PhD. I was so externally validated that
Yep.
I honestly don't even feel like I had any concept of who I was or what I wanted. And I was just kind of following the next logical step, and what's the next thing that's going to impress people, and what's the next thing that's going to, make my parents proud. And they never forced me into anything, but I was kind of following reactions. I was
Yeah.
following what impressed people,
Mhm.
and that's kind of what led me down that path. And you hit a wall where I basically kind of now describe it as I looked up the ladder. I looked at my superiors, I looked at the graduate students that were ahead of me, and they were thriving and they loved it. But I also looked at them and I was like, there's nothing wrong with your life, but I just don't want it. Like, I
Yep.
don't see anything about your life that I want and that I'm driven by. And as soon as I had that aha, I was kind of like, well, shit, what do I do now?
One thing I do want to say about that, just really quickly, because it's something that I've been thinking about, and it just hit me one day through all the things that I read and the research that I've been doing about external validation and how we are literally groomed that way. That is just
Mhm.
how our world is, because you go to school and you have to have the external validation. So it's not our fault. Like,
Mhm.
I would beat myself up now that I've been in my business for almost 7 years now, and I'm kind of on this track of pursuing my own ideas. Like 6 years into my business, I gave myself permission
Mhm.
to pursue my own ideas because I was just always waiting for the next client or the next project. And I finally was like, oh my gosh, I can pursue my own ideas. Nobody has to give me permission, because as much as we teach now, and I try to teach my kids to be internally validated, they just have to
Mhm.
be externalized in so many ways. And undoing that for yourself is a really hard process when you don't have anybody like intentionally reminding you of following your own heart and intuition. And it's a really hard thing to do. So I'm
Mhm.
just validating for you of that experience, because I was the same way until I was like, I can't fucking do this.
Mhm.
Like, I'm so
Mhm.
miserable in all these sexy ass jobs. Everybody telling me, like, I don't know if you've had this experience, Ellen, but for me, I would get so much external validation from my jobs, and then I would actually beat myself up because I didn't feel the way that they reflected it to me. Like, I
Yep.
Mhm.
wasn't happy.
Exactly.
Oh, that was graduate school in a nutshell for me.
Yeah.
100%. Like, I literally had people my dad worked with that I'd never met before, who my dad would just like talk about, "Oh yeah, this is what she's doing. This is what research she's doing." And I would get, messages, and I got graduation gifts and stuff from these people who I'd never met before. And, it felt good that they were so impressed by me, but at the same time I do feel like there was almost like an emptiness because I didn't feel the way
Exactly.
that they felt about what I was doing. I just kind of felt like I was checking boxes and I didn't know what else to do with my life because that had been the path that I was on for so long that I just kind of kept chugging along and kept chugging along. And it finally like hit a wall. And it even in my business, like when you mentioned the business, that happened when I started my business too, because my business started as a side hustle. It started as something that I was kind of grasping at straws at while I was in graduate school, trying to just find something that felt fulfilling. And that's how I fell into coaching. Like, coaching in my world was a complete accident. I never started doing it with the intention of it being my career path or it being a business. And I just kind of fell into it, but it was the most fulfilling thing I had ever done in my life. Literally, as I'm doing like research that's about to be published in like academic journals, which that should have felt very, fulfilling, but it just didn't. Helping these people with whatever I was helping them with felt vastly more fulfilling. And it kind of hit a wall of where I can't keep going down this path that isn't fulfilling to me. I was 3,000 miles away from home, basically pursuing something that I didn't actually want and didn't actually care about. And then I just kind of decided, you know what? Fuck it. I've got to leave. I've got to leave this path despite what everybody might think about it and go do my own thing. But even in my business, the first several years I was in business, I was once again kind of following what other people told me I should do. Like people told me I should, coach people who are in STEM fields because that was the background I came from. And that never felt right. People told me that I should do health and fitness coaching because that's where I started. And that never felt right. People told me I should do productivity and time management stuff because I'm really good at that. It comes very naturally to me. But even that didn't feel right. The only time that I actually found a niche in my business, I feel like every business owner, when they're first like kind of starting out trying to figure out what's their thing, what do they want to do, they kind of are experimenting and following perhaps what people tell them. But I took it to an extreme where my probably first 4 or 5, 6 years in business, I was following what other people were telling me. And I had a year where I basically told myself, Ellyn, you are not allowed to do another group program. You're not allowed to work with another coach. You just have to run your business this year and see what works for you and what feels good for you and where the ideas go and where you want to take your business. And when I did that, that's when I found burnout. And it's the only time in my business where I literally have no desire to change what I do. I absolutely love the niche that I'm in now, but it was self-generated. It was me coming up with that idea and me realizing that that's where all of the connections and all of these different experiences that I've had come together. And that wasn't from somebody else. It was completely from me. And that's just a completely different level of commitment and a different level of fulfillment and just a different level of ownership, I guess, over your path when it is your idea. It's completely self-generated. Nobody pushed you down that path.
That's so cool. That's kind of like what the coast is for us, Emily, among other things. But yeah, we get to pursue our own ideas and talk to people like you. I want to learn more about the Google part. So that means you're good at SEO.
I wish I could take credit, but I really can't. I dated a marketer.
That's awesome.
I dated a marketer and he taught me how to do SEO and basically told me what I needed to do and where I needed to go to do it and what keywords were good keywords for me to use. And I did do it, but he was definitely a guide in my doing it. And yeah, now I've been the #1 burnout coach on Google for several years now. I have great SEO on my website. And I think the fact that I keep using what he taught me, even though we're broken up for several years now, yeah, it's been a tremendous benefit. So shout out to him. Even after we broke up, I contacted his business partner and I was like, how do I write you guys a review where I don't have to go through him? Because he did help me a lot. I just don't want to go through him to write this review. So how can I give you guys a review? Because it was great. And it really did change a lot in my business. Like people find me by Googling Burnout Coach now. And I'd never had that before in my business where people who are outside of my sphere find me just because of SEO.
It almost feels like these magic. I always call them, I fight with SEO people a lot as part of my job. So I hope you have a blog that you keep up semi-regularly.
I do.
Because that always helps. Amazing. The thing that I fight with SEO people about is the ones who are great understand the mix of the science and the art. And it sounds like your ex-boyfriend probably did, because you get them there, you want to keep them. And a lot of SEO people just get them there. And then they have AI or some random person they find on Fiverr write something that's not great, and then they bounce, and you don't want that. So I'm interested, when people come to your site, they find you through Google. Can you take us through the journey for them of what it would mean to work with you and their little navigating on the site and all of that?
Yeah. Well, I feel like the customer journey is a little bit different than what it used to be. I feel like the people who find me on Google and immediately like start interacting with like my speaking page or my coaching page, I feel like that the added advantage of the fact that they're searching burnout coaches, they know that they need this. So they will likely immediately go from my homepage to my resource page. I've got a lot of free resources on my resource page. And then I have on my resource page, I have a whole email onboarding sequence. So when you get a freebie from me, I take them through this entire onboarding sequence of kind of like get to know me, get to know my offers, get to know the ways in which I can help you, get to know a little bit about like who I am and how my personality is. Cause I feel like one of the big ways I connect with the people I work with is I cater basically my entire business to an Enneagram 3, the Enneagram 3 achiever, because that's who I am. That's who all of the things that kind of I quote unquote did wrong in my career is driven by kind of some of the negative aspects of an Enneagram 3. And so I really, really understand this external validation thing. So I really kind of talk to them as a fellow Enneagram 3 of this is what I experienced. Are you experiencing it too? So I have this whole email onboarding sequence. And throughout that sequence, I am kind of peppering in some of the core offers that people usually end up going to. From there, it's my burnout proof members club, my membership. But usually then people will, if they are already came in interested in coaching or they already came in interested in hiring me as a speaker, they will usually reach out to me almost immediately for that. And I feel like the calls, I've gotten to the point where the calls that end up on my calendar of people who are actually kind of like sussing out, am I going to work with her? Are people who are legitimately interested in working with me because I'm very transparent about pricing. I don't gatekeep at all with my prices. They're out there on my website for people to see. And because I learned over the years that I really don't want somebody to end up on my calendar, find out the price and be like, ooh, too expensive or not for me or out of budget or whatever it might be. So I just put my prices out there. And then the people who are ready to work with me and are okay with that price, those are the people that end up on my calendar. So I don't know if that answers your question about their journey, but I feel like that's a big part of how people get into my spheres. They already know what they're looking for when they Google burnout coach. The harder part is the people who are burned out and don't necessarily know that they're burned out and getting those people kind of into the funnel. I'll admit I struggle with that at times because I'm so close to burnout that sometimes it doesn't occur to me that people like don't know what to look for and what it looks like and how to spot it for themselves. So bridging that gap between the person who knows that they're burned out and the person who knows something's off but doesn't know they're burned out, that's still a gap that I'm definitely trying to bridge in my business.
I think
For sure.
I think it's the same way with my business too. Like people who know they need an assistant, they search for, virtual assistants, but people who don't, people are like, I'm doing it fine all by myself, and they don't realize like the value or that they could delegate things. That's also a gap that I'm trying to fix in my business too. But I have this feeling that I am one of your people that are burned out and don't know it. I mean,
Well, and I was going to say there's opportunity for you to collab.
yeah.
Oh, hey.
I've thought about a lot of business coaches. We do have lots of business coaches refer to us, lots of business coaches who use us, and they're like, hey, our clients could use it too. And that's totally something that, we've done in the past. But like, what do you do when you're just too, I think it's just, you're too burned out to do anything. Like you
Yeah.
have the structure in your head, and you know exactly what you need to do to get there, and you literally cannot push the go button because you're so tired.
Oh man. I mean, I feel like in that situation I would say don't push the go button, but obviously not all of us have that luxury. I've kind of been in that season a little bit. Like I've been very transparent about this. I had a very, very busy speaking schedule this past fall, and I full blown burned myself out with my speaking gigs because I am still trying to figure out what my capacity is as a speaker. I haven't been doing it for long enough to really know what my capacity is. And I hit that point this fall of having things that I want to put out, having that structure in place, like you said, and not having any motivation to do it. Like it just didn't feel like I was going to launch something on Black Friday, and it just did not feel like the right time. Emotionally, it didn't feel right. Physically, it didn't feel right. I didn't feel like I had the energy to pour into it. And fortunately, I've started working with a coach, and she was just kind of like, why are you forcing yourself to launch this? It's not going to probably be a good launch if you're not into it. The people who you're launching to probably aren't going to be into it either. So what I did, and what I'm even kind of doing heading into this new year, because again, I have a lot of speaking gigs in January. Well, not a lot. I have two, but I have two different trips that I'm going on for speaking in January. And it already felt like a pretty big mental load for January. And so once again, my coach told me, and sometimes as much as I know this work, that textbook high achiever mentality is I feel like I'm superhuman still. And I'm like, well, whatever, I could just do it. And I could just force myself to do it and force myself to show up. I feel like that high achiever personality, you're very self-disciplined. You're very self-motivated. You're able to get yourself to show up even if it's not at your best. You'll do the thing and you'll push through it. At least that's how I am. And if I hadn't had her there to kind of bounce ideas off of and to just kind of help talk me down, even though I know I shouldn't be pushing myself in that capacity and that that's not sustainable, I sometimes have to have somebody to talk me down. So in that situation, the advice she gave me, which is the advice I would probably give, is pivot your focus. Since I already have so many speaking engagements in January that are going to require a lot of my own mental bandwidth, a lot of my time, a lot of my energy, I'm pivoting my focus to the offerings in my sphere and in my space that don't take a lot of me. So like passive products, and I sell Notion templates because Notion has kind of been like a gateway for people into my world. So I'll do that digital product stuff. I'll do my membership because that's a little bit more passive. It's not going to be so hands-on as like doing a launch of a group program or working with one-on-one clients. So I have been pivoting my energy when I am in that state of feeling like I just don't have a lot of extra to give, of what are the things that require the least of me on a day-to-day basis. What are the things that, don't require me to show up on a video call, but that I can just kind of work on in the background in my sweatpants in a messy bun, like super not ready to face the world, but like I can still get some stuff done. And I pivot my focus to focusing on those things. Does that make sense?
Yes. Like things that, yes. That's like the mentality that I have too, is like, okay, what can I put out there that takes effort at the beginning, right? To like build it and create the structure. And then you can sell it, like the digital products and that don't take very much of your time, but they're still really beneficial to your potential your clients. That's
exactly.
Building all of that is on my, and I'm working toward that this year too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think we're both pretty intrigued about the speaking stuff.
Oh my God, yes.
Yeah. And I have so many layers of questions that aren't necessarily probably relevant to you just based on our small experience, because we spoke at the same event a few months apart. And I feel like I'm still recovering from it. Even a couple days ago, you guys, I was like in our kitchen thinking about how they called me awkward and weird to Emily. So I spoke first, and then they wanted me to come to their happy hour that they made an extra hour longer before I went up to speak. And so I had prepared my whole thing, and I was just waiting to give my work to the world that had invited me there, and they just didn't host me or handle me very well at all. And I undercharged too, so that was part of it. And then afterwards, because I wasn't going to go mingle with a bunch of strangers and fragment my energy before going up to talk, so I just kind of hung out for 3 hours waiting to go on stage, that they decided I was awkward and weird and told Emily that when she came for their next quarterly meeting. Like, our last speaker was awkward and weird, and I was just standing in the kitchen, when you have those moments.
I think they said antisocial, but
well, and those are things that I had been called, so it was like a minor trigger for me.
Kind of triggering, yeah.
And then I was thinking about so they had told her that, and she relayed it to me right before we did our Mean Girls event for the coast. And I was thinking about how just a few days later I was with my people, so I wasn't awkward and antisocial with the right people. It was just that I was with the wrong people, and I had not deemed myself worthy enough to be there, so I had undercharged in this huge way. Even my stepfather was like, wait, you didn't add a zero to that? Like, I charged them $250. He was like, you didn't charge them $2,500 to show up for that? And I was like, George, you cannot beat me up more about this. Like, it was so, and it's not that it was bad. Like, the money was just one layer of it, but I'm like, and they kind of came into my inbox, so I didn't know anything. And Emily and I had actually talked about what we were going to charge them. We had no idea. And so for me, I'm sure Emily has a ton of questions too, but just like when you're going out, and now we had talked about it afterwards of like, this was a test for us to see and she had a different experience in different ways. Like, is this something that we want to pursue, and how we're going to value and take care of ourselves, like you've been talking about, in the process of that? Because it isn't just getting up and delivering it. Even if you're giving the same speech over and over, you really have to get yourself in the right place, which is why I wasn't going to mingle with all these strangers, but they were busy putting on an event, not caring about their speaker. It was just very weird. So I'm curious, like, just everything that you want to tell us about your experience, how you think about it, how you prepare, how you deal with your handlers and making sure that they even know that they're ready to receive you. We had that problem too, where we didn't know who we were talking to or who would be paying us. It was just bizarre all around. So
Yeah.
I'd love to hear about like the positives and negatives of your experience, and then how you're navigating it in a way that feels good to you.
Ooh. Okay. Well, I'll start with the pricing thing because I feel like my entire business is like I fell into it on accident. And that's kind of how it was with speaking as well. I had good SEO and this group found me and said, "Hey, do you do speaking?" And at the time I was really curious about getting into speaking, but I hadn't really done any speaking. So similarly, I charged $500 for my first speaking engagement because that is what felt comfortable at the time. And honestly, even that felt a little bit uncomfortable at the time, but I charged them for it. It was all virtual because honestly, I got into speaking during COVID. Like when do people need a burnout and stress coach to come in? COVID. Like my actual first paid speaking client was the Canadian Association for Critical Care Nurses. Talk about a group of
Wow.
people that really, really, really needed some support during COVID. So I charged what felt comfortable, but for the first year and a half, it was all virtual. My first paid in-person speaking event was actually for LinkedIn. Not even joking.
That's so
They
cool. That's
they did
so
not
cool.
know that
Yeah,
it was
that's
my first
awesome.
in person, but they flew me down to it was kind of a quote unquote offsite, but it was literally across the street from LinkedIn HQ in San Francisco. So they took me over there for lunch afterward. It was really cool. I was being a nerd and took a picture in front of the LinkedIn sign on the roof. But like in that situation at that point in time, I had a lot of momentum. So I feel like I upped my prices a lot, almost maybe a little bit aggressively too much in the first year and a half, 2 years I was doing speaking, because the more experience I got with, the more confident I was with it. But still at that point in time, it was very much a hybrid of in person and virtual. I would say at that point in time, and this was in 2021, no, 2022. So the vast majority of my speaking engagements were probably 75% virtual, 25% in person. That was a very, very easy balance to navigate because there's no mingling before a virtual call. You just hop on when they tell you to hop on, you do the thing, and then you exit, you know? So when it was primarily virtual, that was a very, very easy balance to maintain. The last year, what has been a harder balance to maintain is because I don't do anything virtual anymore. I feel like people kind of scoff at virtual speaking now. It's like, just come in person. So what I've been doing is I definitely have had to, in the last year and a half, kind of see what the market is receptive to in terms of pricing. My previous pricing, I did decrease my prices slightly because the kind of looming recession of last year, nobody was buying speaking. So I dropped my prices slightly for speaking. And then in terms of managing my energy, I do highly recommend, if you can, try to, and I actually do feel like as a speaker, you have a lot of authority to ask of this, especially if it works better for your energy. Try to speak at the start of events. Even if you're only like 30 minutes into the event, that usually is going to feel better energetically because there's not going to be an expectation that you're going to pour yourself into the event, that you're going to mingle. But even if I was speaking later in the day, which probably a third of my speaking engagements, I'm speaking later in the day, I don't usually show up until about 30 minutes before my speaking engagement. I think it's a lot to expect yourself to show up and mingle prior to actually doing your speaking. And if that is a situation where the organizer isn't communicating with you about when you're speaking, how I kind of think of it is, and the mindset I go into it with is, they are paying you for a particular chunk of your time. And it's not,
Right.
yeah, it's,
Yeah, I was pissed.
yeah.
Because it was
And
a bait and switch.
if
Yeah.
I've actually saw this online somewhere and I love it, so I'm going to reiterate it here. If there is a shift in the schedule that is going to impact your timing, that's the point where you would then go up to the organizer. And I always have a point person who I communicate with for every speaking engagement I've ever done. Even if, I collaborated on content with an entire team of people, there's usually a single point person. If that's any sort of unclear, I will email the entire group and just be like, hey, I fly out tomorrow. I just want to know who is my point person? Who should I contact while I'm on the ground to coordinate logistics? And I make sure I have their email. I make sure I have their phone number. And that's the person I go to for any questions I might have. But I will ask them, if there's a shift to their schedule, what do you want me to do? Do you want me to go long? Or do you want me to shorten my talk? And that's what I will usually ask them. But I have if they start more than a half an hour late, I shorten my talk dramatically. And I will make a point of
because you've been there the whole time.
And I feel like I have no qualms at this point about saying, well, we got started a little bit late, so I'm going to have to skip through this. I apologize. I'll send you guys the slide. Something like that. And I don't even think I say I apologize anymore. I used to say I apologize all the time. And I'm like, we got started a little bit late, so we have to skip over this. I'll send you guys the slides if you want it. Like, I don't even say I apologize because it's not my fault. It's the organizer's fault. My vast majority of speaking engagements have been corporate. So I do feel like there's a little bit more like inherent structure there. And I'm trying to make sure I'm respecting their schedule simultaneously while they're trying to respect my time. I'm not sure what this event was for that you kind of got bait and switched on, but that's kind of my 2 cents from there. I'm not sure if that's helpful.
No, it is. It was a wedding professionals event.
Oh, okay.
Which was fascinating. And Emily had a completely different experience, but while you can maybe coach us on this, Emily, are you thinking that you want to do more? Like, I feel like we were both kind of traumatized by our different negative experiences.
No, I definitely am going to speak more. I'm just right now, for me, it's like organizing all of my different, and I do compartmentalize different than you do, Whitney. All of my different I have different brands. I have She's a Given. I have She's a Given Academy. I have Emily Given. I have the Coast. So it's like sitting down and organizing all these different things and creating, I was actually writing out funnels before this call, like for different things and coming up with strategies for different things. So that's part of my Emily Given goals this year. So yeah, I would love to book 12 speaking engagements this year.
Love that.
It's a lofty goal. I think I can do it.
Yeah. Well, and to your point too, like I'm similar in where I'm at of what I would want to speak on and who I would be interested in speaking to. And I think the biggest lesson for us too is like you were saying, Ellen, just you have to kind of throw shit at the wall, like this was us just being like, all right, is this something that we want to do, and what works and what doesn't? How do we care to be treated and treat ourselves? And I love the idea of speaking, and you do it in a bunch of different ways where you're able to impact a bunch of people at once in hopefully a super positive way. And that's where I'm moving a lot of my business, is how can I have a bigger impact in these group scenarios that feels really good to everyone involved. And that'll reveal itself over time.
Yeah, it's been a marketing funnel for me too. Like this fall, I did 80 bajillion speaking engagements this fall, which is why I was so tired. But like I have a speaking engagement coming up later this month that was somebody I met through one of the speaking engagements I did this fall. I got multiple one-on-one clients from speaking this fall. So it's a great marketing funnel if somebody wants to get into speaking. But yeah, I think I really feel like when it comes to burnout, and I do feel like perhaps too many situations like this could burn you both out from speaking and could put a sour taste in your mouth when it comes to speaking being a part of your business. I really do feel like inauthenticity can burn you out just as much as anything else, just as much as a crazy schedule or a long to-do list. Yes. And it's really very much about, and I have never been a big like intuition person. I feel like I'm learning to listen to my intuition, and I've gotten a lot better at it. But intuitively feeling out, does charging this much feel right? And if it doesn't, what I will usually do is I drop my prices, then I put into the speaking contract that they need to write me a review after we're done, that is a non-negotiable. I had another group where
so smart.
Actually, this was a really I'll ask for bonus things. Like I actually had a group in last August who I show up and they're like, "Oh, by the way, we're going to film this entire thing. We've got this person who's going to come and set up the videography. We've got this." And I literally looked at them. I was like, "Do you know how valuable that is for a speaker to have video of them speaking?" I don't have any video of me speaking except for Zoom calls. I have very, very little. I need to do that. That's something that's on the docket for this year, is to actually have a videographer like legit come and films me speaking. But when they said that they had that, I was like, what will it take for me to get a copy of that video? And they were like, "Oh, yeah, no problem. We'll send it to you." And it was so valuable to me that I actually told them, I was like, "Look, your group seemed very, very interested in this topic. I would love to do a bonus training for you guys that I can just pre-record and send you as a thank you for giving me this video." So like, that's kind of how I'll work it. If they ask me to drop my prices, or for whatever reason they have like a kick-ass photographer there, or they're taking video of the event and they then give that to you, I'll kind of reciprocate and give them a little bit of a thank you for providing that bonus stuff for me. But yeah, I constantly am asking myself, I have dropped clients that didn't feel like they were a good fit. I had a little bit of a polite altercation with one client who was 100% putting me through the ringer. It was actually my second time working with this company, and they had changed all of their policies for how they brought in speakers, but I was pissed because it was all this extra work that was put on me that I did not agree to. I had to like sign an NDA that protected them but didn't protect me and my intellectual property. They had all of the stuff that I asked me to do, and yet they wouldn't, because their policy was, "Oh, we don't pay any of our speakers anything until after the event." And I was just like, "Well, neato for you. You signed a contract that says you have to pay me 50% down and 50% after the event. So if you don't pay me my 50% down by like Wednesday of this week, I'm out. I don't care if your event's 10 days from now." So like, there are definitely times where you have to feel out your emotions in that situation. And in that situation, I had a bad vibe about this particular group when I signed up to do the speaking, and I ignored it. And I regretted ignoring it because they did put me through the ringer. So there's like a massive emotional component to bringing speaking into your business, because it is so emotionally and mentally and physically draining. You really, really have to pay a lot of attention to your intuition, to your emotions, what feels good, what doesn't feel good. Because if you ignore those things, that's usually what ends up costing you.
Yes, and look at you internally validating yourself. That's,
Yeah.
like you said, that's a huge emotional part of it. And for somebody who went after so much external validation, of course, you're getting that from those events. The process leading up to it, like the back end, is all you and checking in with yourself. And I just want to commend you for that, because that's really incredible.
Thank you. I was very proud of myself in that situation.
Yeah. I'm curious, as one of our last questions before we get into rapids, what are some of, like, just top of mind, some of your client successes that you know about and are able and comfortable sharing that make you feel the best about your business and the work that you're doing?
Oh, oh man, I have to pick. That's hard.
You can pick a bunch, pick a pile.
I'll just kind of start rattling some off. I have a client who actually became a very good friend. We're like at the point where I kind of unfortunately can't maybe coach her anymore because we're such good friends now. But one of the things I'm super proud of with her is we started working together right when she was trying to decide whether she was going to continue doing a corporate route or if she was going to actually start a consulting business. And at the time, she was, and I feel like this is something that happens for a lot of people who are high achievers, she kind of was in this burnout cycle where like every 3 to 6 months, she would burn out so badly that she'd end up in her, in her pajamas for like a week, just like unable to do anything because she just crashed and burned. And we set her up with, systems, with better self-care habits and routines that weren't like restrictive, to the point where she could build this consulting business in a way that was very, very sustainable for her. And she does a little bit of corporate work here and there, but we really helped her create systems for herself, non-negotiable time off, non-negotiable self-care routines that she's been able to maintain since I worked with her like 5 years ago. And she has a absolutely thriving business now doing her consulting work. So I'm super proud of that one. I'm also super proud of, I've had some clients come into my world where, I usually don't say the default is go quit your job or, burn down your business, but sometimes that's necessary. Sometimes we have to take a pause. And I'm really grateful for one client who I did start working with literally a couple months into COVID. And she had a very micromanaging boss and literally worked 80 or 90 hours a week in her corporate position and was just had to go on stress leave for 6 weeks. It was like that bad. And we ended up trying to see if we could make her current job work. And ultimately we didn't, but she has been absolutely thriving in this new job that she found while we were working together. Absolutely loves it. Her boss is super supportive. They have great boundaries. She actually had a dream to buy herself a little like cottage. She's from England, so she wanted to buy herself an English cottage that she could vacation to, and she finally did it, and she's there constantly, which
Cute.
I'm
It's
super proud of her
it's like a
for. I know,
holiday
right?
in real life.
I was just thinking that.
Oh, that's
I was
so
just thinking
cool.
that. Yes. Oh God, I'm so proud of her. Every time I see her on Instagram, I'm like, oh, look at her. She's out riding her bike. She's out walking. So I like see it in her Instagram stories, these little habits that she's implemented. And I actually have another client that I worked with 2 clients this year that I absolutely loved working with. One who's a realtor, and she said in her testimonial something that I loved because I believe is so true. She said something about how she was so happy to see that when it comes to burnout and stress management, it's not about, massive lifestyle changes. She was able to adopt this incredibly rejuvenating morning routine that we literally built around the fact that she likes to go on a walk in the morning, but she wasn't letting herself. And we built this routine for her that was just these small little things that she just stacked on top of each other. And some days she might not do part of it, and some days she might do another part of it. But her testimonial was, I was so grateful to see that it's not about massive lifestyle changes. It's about small things done consistently. And it made it so bite-sized and made it so practical for her to manage everything that was on her plate. And I'm super, super grateful for her. She's lovely, and we became friends as well. I become friends with like 90% of my clients after we're done working together, which is awesome. I love my clients. They're wonderful. Yeah. So I feel like those are the ones that kind of come to mind immediately over the course of like 5 years, which is kind of fun.
Yeah, that's just so heartwarming. I love hearing those stories. And are most of these people coming through group or one-to-one or a mix?
Mostly through one-to-one. One-to-one's kind of been my bread and butter since I started coaching. I love it. I love I just like being able to really dig deep with people one-to-one. I love to help people figure out their values. That's almost like a non-negotiable, just like every person I work with. I have done group coaching, but I think the most memorable experience for me thus far, I'm planning on launching a like mastermind kind of thing this year, but most of the really, really memorable ones have been one-on-one coaching primarily.
Is that typically, what are your containers like for people who are hearing this right now and they're like, yes, sign me up for Ellyn. What's my minimum? What you found to be the most effective with people? Talk
For
to us about
one-on-one
that.
coaching?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I would say the minimum is 3 months. Especially if it's a brand new coaching client, I will not work with anybody for less than 3 months. But I actually would say the majority of my clients, we work together for 6 months. And the nice thing about that is that leaves an opportunity for a little bit of wiggle room and a little bit of experimentation. I'm still a scientist at heart. And I recognize that we might not necessarily implement something from the get-go that's going to work immediately. It might not. There has to be some room for experimentation when it comes to burnout and stress management habits and routines and tactics and even systems. Like, it's not one size fits all. We have to experiment a bit to figure out what's going to work for that person. And I think with 6 months, it gives us plenty of time to do that. Plus, then time to dive into some of the more emotional sides of burnout, some of the things like mindset, some of the things like values, because I would say probably half of the burnout I see is because of values conflicts that people don't even know are there. So that's why I prefer the 6 months, but then I've worked with clients up to like a year and a half. It kind of depends on, where they're starting from. That client who went on 6 weeks of stress leave, we worked together for over a year. So probably the minimum is 3 months up to like a year and a half.
It's so awesome. You're doing such important things. I just think of like all of the millennials.
Yes.
Basically, we
All
all
of
need you.
us.
Yeah.
Let's go into some rapid fires if you're open to it, and they don't have to
Heck
be
yeah.
super rapid. And since we are speaking now in a new year, you might have new ways that you're thinking about this. What are you proudest of in your business right now?
Oh, I think I am proudest in my business about, well, from a, know your worth perspective, since we've been talking about pricing and whatnot today, I'm owning the fact that I need to up my prices, and I've already started doing that, which is something I'm really proud of. And I'm really proud of the fact that, I feel like everybody wants to get to the point in their business where they don't have to like hunt for new people to come into their world nearly as much. I feel like the fact that people are coming to me and they're, I get DMs from people who listen to the podcast, and I had people join my business in December that, we're not connected anywhere. You know how you have like the lurkers, the people who kind of watch from afar. I feel like have lurkers who are actually now coming into like my membership and who are connecting with me. And that's so fun to see, because for the first several years in my business, it was like friends and friends of friends, which is awesome and valuable. Don't get me wrong, but it's really fun to bring new names and new faces into my world. And that happened a lot in like December and the last several days. And that's been really fun. And I'm very proud of that.
That's cool. I wrote an email a few months ago about not underestimating the lurkers. They
Mhm.
are so magical, and you don't know what they're doing and when they're
Mhm.
going to come in and just be like, yep, tell us about a book you read or a podcast you listened to recently that changed the way you're thinking about your life or your business.
Ooh. Okay, I have been reading, actually, I'm finishing it right now. I'm finishing The Gap and the Gain. Have either of you ever read that
I
book?
have not.
No.
It's a very short book. It's a very easy read. It's kind of like, if any of you have ever read Mindset, which is kind of like the growth versus fixed mindset. I feel like we're all a bit more familiar with that one. It's similar to that, but it's just like a reframe in your perspective about how you think about things. Like, it's basically, in a nutshell, you should definitely read it, but I'll summarize it really quickly. Most of us tend to look at our lives and our businesses through the lens of the gap, which is basically you looking at where you are and how far you have to go to get to your goals. And this guy who wrote it, he's a psychologist, is basically saying that's a very disheartening way to look at your life and your
Yes.
business. So instead of looking at the gap, look at the gain. Don't look at where you are and how far you have to go. Look at how far you've come. And I'm personally a personality that really, really needs that perspective, because if I look at, he had a question in there like, what has changed in the last 10 years of your life? Well, 10 years ago, I was in graduate school still. 10 years ago, as of like to the day, 10 years ago, I hadn't even started like my first side hustle yet. I was still very much in the thick of, I'm going to be a scientist and I'm going to be Dr. Ellyn. Even 5 years ago, my business turns 5 in exactly a week. I had just founded my LLC. I didn't have any one-on-one coaching clients. Speaking was like such a distant aspiration in my life. So it's like, that is such a more empowering perspective to come from than to come from how far you have to go. And I tend to get so stuck in the gap. And so that's been a really very simple but very, very important mindset shift that I've been working on making since I started reading that book.
Yeah, I love that. Adding to my list, I've been very active asking people what books I need to read this year, and I have a rule for myself that if I hear something, it used to be 3 times, but now if I hear something even twice, I'm like, okay, the universe is serving this to me and I need to listen. So, not that sometimes it only takes one at this point if I'm interested, but like definitely 2, 3. I'm getting beat over the head with, you need to read this book.
I'm going to steal that.
Yeah. What would your last meal be?
Oh my goodness. That's so hard. I feel like it would be like a mishmash of some of my favorite things. Like, nobody judge me for this stuff I'm about to rattle off, because it's probably
No
going to be a
judgment.
lot of fattiness and carbs.
Carbs are not the
My
devil.
grandma's twice. Oh, I love
Yes.
carbs. I'm
Okay.
Italian. Even though I have a German last name, I'm a quarter Italian. My grandma's twice baked potatoes. My mom makes the best salted caramel ever, and she only makes it in the holidays. So I would have some of that, maybe like an entire tray just to be a fatty. We also have these Italian pastries that are literally from, this is how Italian I am. I have a great grandma Nani who was 4'10" and had to stand on a stool to stir the pasta sauce. And she has a family cookbook. And there's these things called, they're basically like cheese pastries, but they're called koshkatels. I would have some of those. And honestly, I love me a good Caesar salad. So maybe a Caesar salad and some flank steak. That'd probably be my last meal. I'd be very happy. I'd die full.
Yum.
Yeah, we had a really funny answer. This is amazing. And it's so interesting how different people answer it. And there was somebody who had like all these dietary restrictions who
Oh
we
my
talked to
gosh, yeah.
recently. And she was like, "It's my last meal, so like go hard." I was dying. It was so funny because these things you don't think about them,
Mhm.
like, oh, if I can go all in and like not even worry about like how my stomach will react.
Yeah. That's how my brother is. My brother is literally cannot eat artificial sugar. So like if there's anything that ends in
Oh
ose on
no.
the ingredient list, he can't eat it. So we
Wow.
like have to make him like special cookies. And there's sometimes where he's like, God damn it, I want Mike and Ike's. And he just like gets a box of Mike and Ike's and just pounds them down. He's like, I'll deal
I
with the
ate
consequences
real
later.
ice
Fine.
cream yesterday. It was not okay. Like I enjoyed it so much for the 3 minutes, and I was like, not worth it, not worth it. It was so bad. Anyway,
I am blessed to not have dietary restrictions. I feel for the people that do.
it was
Same.
so good.
Yeah.
Cinnamon chocolate chip. Oh my god.
Oh. Or ooh, half baked. Can I add half baked
Ben
ice
and
cream?
Jerry's.
Half
Oh,
baked
that
Ben
one
and
is the
Jerry's.
best.
Yeah.
I'm adding
Yes.
that.
Yeah, that one's awesome. What's the best business purchase you've made in the last 6 months under $100?
Oh, what is the best business purchase I've made? Is this under $100? This might be slightly under $100. I just got an ergonomic, I think the mouse is. I just got an ergonomic mouse and keyboard. I think together they're maybe slightly over $100. But oh my God, I'm like, my wrist used to hurt, like my hand used to hurt after spending the entire day on a computer. And yeah, I got ergonomic things for Christmas. That's immediately where my brain went, but I could probably think of other things. Oh, and this isn't a business purchase, but I bought a simple modern tumbler. It's like a cheaper version of a Stanley. And I've never been so hydrated in my entire life.
Yeah, we've had a former guest talk about her frother. They all when your life and your business are very integrated, then all those things matter.
Hmm. Hmm. I even went to Target and got myself some like cute prints to hang above my desk. So I have like one that I'm staring at right now that says "Be gentle with yourself." I'm also
Mhm.
really happy with those purchases. I don't know. I could
Yeah,
probably keep going, but that was like $20. That was a good buy, and it matches the colors in my apartment, so I'm into it.
it's fun. What's lighting you up lately?
Oh, this is super not business related, but my little nephews, I got to see them so much in December, and one of them, he's about a year and a half old, coming up on a year and a half old. And my first nephew, I didn't get to see him a lot because he was born in fall 2019. So, like, this time in his life, I didn't get to see him a ton. And getting to see my youngest nephew, go through that like wobbly walking stage where he looks more like he's waddling like a penguin than actually walking, and getting to see his like personality start to come out. I was so excited on Christmas this year because usually when he comes into my parents' house, he's super shy and like just like latches onto my sister-in-law like a koala and like doesn't want to engage with any of us. But this time he was definitely still latched onto her, but I was like, "Hi, Hudson." And he gave me this cutest, biggest grin. And I was like, that is the fastest smile I've ever gotten out of that child. And that means he's starting to know me. And that made
Mhm.
me so happy. I don't plan on having kids, but I love being an aunt and being able to see this stage where he's really, really starting to like get a personality. I didn't get that with my first nephew. And it's so fun. And it makes me so happy. I love him. They're adorable. Hudson and Brayden.
That's so sweet. And you really can't underscore the importance of aunties and uncles and all of that. I have many, and I wish I was closer to them
Mm-hmm.
because they're just, bonus parents, like a step
Yeah.
parent, and it really is on the aunt and uncle to invest in that kid because the kids, it's not their job, and then they
Mm-hmm.
become adults and they don't know you at all, and then it's awkward.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that you are able to invest in that he knows you and that you can build your relationship is so beautiful. What's one life experience everyone should have? Our last question.
Ooh, actually, that's easy. After I dropped out of graduate school, I spent a year traveling abroad, and everybody needs to spend, in my opinion, extended time if you can, time out of your home country. Like, if you're in the States, get out of the States. If you're in Canada, get out of Canada. I'm not sure where your listeners are all from, probably primarily in North America, but like just get out of Dodge. That was I learned very quickly that that is not the lifestyle I want. I don't think I could be a digital nomad full time and live out of a suitcase. It started driving me crazy. But you don't have an appreciation for how other cultures live and how other, even just, the fact that, they take a siesta in the middle of the day in Spain, and that in Portugal, like, it is super freaking weird to eat dinner before 8 p.m. Or one of my favorite countries I've ever been to was Colombia, former Pablo Escobar cocaine capital of the world. I loved it because there's such an attitude of gratitude for 99% of the people I met in Colombia. Like, they are so committed to changing the face of their country and how their country is seen nationwide. Some of the sweetest people I have ever met in my life upon first encounter were in Colombia. And I just don't think we have an appreciation for that unless you get out and you spend extended time abroad. That's honestly one of the best decisions I ever made. It was very expensive, but very worth it to spend a year out of the country.
I love traveling, except for I haven't even traveled out of the country. I just love traveling domestically. We travel a lot for hockey, but we'll see if we go to Mexico. We're supposed to.
Mm-hmm.
You go to Canada, Emily?
Oh, yeah, you're right. I go to Canada. I just spent the last week in Canada. Yes, I did. We love Canada.
Yeah, Canada, Mexico. I loved Mexico City. We were there for a month. And yeah, get to South America. Those are much easier trips to take if you can than to get to Europe.
Yeah.
Europe is quite a jaunt.
I want to do Europe, but I feel like you have to do like a longer time than we have.
Mm-hmm.
You can't go like 7-10 days is good, but not good enough,
Yeah. I'm childless, so I have that advantage.
I'm going to live through you. Do it. Go, Ellyn.
Just 11 more years for you, Emily. It's fine.
It's fine.
You can literally map out and plan a very, very epic trip, though, in 11 years.
I know. Or like, I have friends that travel to Europe with kids. It's doable.
It is.
It's hard, but that doesn't mean you can't do it.
I'm also like, from a logistical perspective, I'm a big fan of like staycations. I probably went on like 6 staycations this year. So even if that's all you can do, do it.
Same. Ellyn, before we let you go, how do people get a hold of you? Where can they find you online?
Well, I am Coach Ellyn everywhere, and my first name is spelled weird, so ELLYN. I'm CoachEllyn.com. I'm at Coach Ellyn on Instagram. I'm Coach Ellyn on Twitter, though don't go on Twitter because I never use Twitter. I'm intrigued about Threads, though. I feel like I need to get on Threads, but I will be Coach Ellyn wherever you want to find me. Instagram's probably my happy place, but all the good stuff, all the goodies is at CoachEllyn.com. Again, ELLYN, just to mess you up.
And the Threads thing, it's like your people from Instagram plus more. The algorithm really, like, especially for you in the coaching world, there's tons of coaches and people talking about coaching.
Mm-hmm.
I actually went mini viral because I was talking about how I hate long sales pages with hidden pricing and like, why are you doing this to us? Who taught you how to do this? Please stop. And it just people went nuts for it. And I was like, oh, okay. And then I had to start talking not about coaching because I didn't want my entire feed to be about coaching. But it's almost like TikTok. Their algorithm is so clued in on you to the point where I was talking about books and I started like almost getting weepy because the conversations I was having with people were so awesome. I really encourage you to be on there and we will be besties because I think it'll be a place where you thrive, especially if you want to hit people with different ways of communicating. They see pictures of you, they see videos, but hearing your words, different people consume information differently. So I think you have a lot of stuff that you can just repurpose and start testing over there. That would be really fun.
I'm so intrigued. Also, that I saw you shared that long sales page thing on Instagram, and it made me question every single sales page on my website. So thank you.
Oh my gosh, funny. And that's not necessarily my intention. Like, I don't care if it's long, if it's helpful. But what I don't like is I have to then get to the buttons and then click the buttons to even see what the pricing is. It feels bait and switchy, just like other things. I'm very sensitive to that.
We should put the jump to recipe button on our long sale pages.
Right?
Jump to pricing, jump to...
I have that. That's how I do mine.
Yeah.
Good.
I like it.
Yeah, it's like taking, like, it's the discernment piece of, it's taking what people are taught generally and then making it yours and what feels good for you and your people.
I like it. I'm intrigued. Maybe I'll go on Threads today.
Yeah. Well, and it's the same thing too, where it can get really overwhelming. Like, you'll be looking at your feed and it'll be like me saying that thing. And then the next one will be like, I love long sales pages with hidden pricing. And then that'll have 300 likes, you know? So it's really just like, say what you want and be you. Like, you'll find your people, but it's like, opinions are like assholes, you know? So
Yeah.
I mean, people don't have to agree with me on that. Just like as a consumer, it's really hard for me because I have a certain budget that I'm thinking of and I want to find the perfect person for me and understand what I'm going to be investing. And if that's hidden from me, then I don't like you because I feel like you're already lying to me.
100%. No, I get that.
So yeah, it's a great place to spark conversation like that, you know, where people dig in. It's exhausting for Emily.
Is that why that sigh?
No, I was taking a cleansing breath.
I approve of that. Breathing strategies are great for managing stress.
Yeah. I'm so excited for people to find you.
Me too. This has been awesome.
Yeah.
This has been so fun. Thank you guys for having me.
Thanks for coming, Ellyn. And I have up your page right now.
I know you made some cute tweaks to the colors and everything on your site from the last time I saw it.
I did?
I think so.
Maybe I did. I don't remember. I feel like when I get bored, I go play on my website, which is probably bad, but whatever.
No, it's really cute. Everyone, the green is really pretty, and she's got some fun photos and pop-ups and things.
I just had a photo shoot with Christina. She's my photographer now.
Christina Pearl, yes.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, cute.
Your 404 error page is really, your message is so funny. I mean, not your message, your picture. You're like, yikes. I love that.
That is from my very first photo shoot I ever did. And I don't remember what we were talking about, but I made a grimace face. And my photographer was so proud of herself for capturing that picture.
That's
I use it all the time.
I love it.
Like anytime I'm talking about something that makes me cringe, I use that picture.
I like it.
It just makes me happy.
Should make it like a auto response or whatever on your, not auto response, but like a,
like an out of office?
Like a meme. You can meme yourself.
I should meme myself. I like this plan.
That's so awesome.
We love you.
Love you guys. I'm going to see hopefully more of you this year because I'm going to network. It's going to be great.
Good. Love that. We can't wait to see you. We have some things that we're planning that once we solidify them, we will discuss them more, but just fun ways of supporting our people's businesses. The whole intention of this podcast has become conversations that become community. So we're always going to be looking for ways that we can connect in real life too, which is why we've kept it pretty local and pretty female focused. That's not a rule, but it's kind of how it's been going. And we've just gotten so much fulfillment and purpose out of getting people together. We're not super formal as like memberships or anything. It's just like, here's another opportunity to play and support each other's businesses.
Love that. Well, if I can, I'll be there.
Awesome. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Thanks everyone for tuning in to another episode of The Coast. We will see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.